We become trauma therapists because we want to help others heal. And we don't initially expect that what that means is that we're going to be confronted with trauma related images and stories, sometimes for 6 to 8 hours a day. This can take a significant toll on our minds and bodies and our overall sense of well being. Another thing to think about is that when we are working with others, we often end therapy as soon as the distressing symptoms have resolved. Well, on the one hand, that's good, but we don't really get to see the full potential or the integration phase of our client's trauma recovery, right? When we get to ride through the later stages of treatment, we get to see what happens when their resilience is supported, when they can move into post-traumatic growth or grow into their potential. When we don't get to join them in that stage of the treatment, we're just running from working through the difficulty to baseline. We end up feeling a little bit more depleted. In fact, sometimes quite a lot more depleted. So while you may have heard of post-traumatic growth, you might not know how to get your clients there. There is a roadmap to resilience and growing into our potential. There's this really interesting oft-cited quote from Freud, who said that much has been gained if we succeed in transforming neurotic misery into ordinary unhappiness. I think we can do better than that. My name is Dr. Arielle Schwartz, and I am a clinical psychologist, a somatic therapist, trauma treatment expert, and I've been a yoga teacher for about 30 years. I'm the founder of Resilience-Informed Therapy, which is an integrative mind-body approach to care that synthesizes together relational therapy, applied polyvagal theory, somatic therapy, parts work therapies, and EMDR therapy into a holistic and strength-based approach to trauma recovery. Now, how did I arrive here in my work? It began with my own story of burnout. I initially was working in the field as a trauma treatment expert. I had graduated from my somatic psychology program. I had integrated EMDR into my work, and I was working in community mental health for long hours in the day. And I also was seen as a young and vibrant and capable therapist and was often receiving referrals of some of the most difficult clients. What I also observed is that many of the clinicians who had been in community mental health for a long time were very burnt out. They didn't have the energy, and that's why I was getting some of these clients. Now, what I began to notice in myself is that vicarious trauma is real, and I started to feel the weight of focusing the lens on the distress, on the trauma, of hearing these hard stories day after day. And I started to experience my own burnout, my own depletion. And it wasn't just psychological, it was physiological. And then a few years later, I discovered the work of Marty Seligman and his work in positive psychology. His work was really initially about studying learned helplessness. And then he evolved his work into studying what he calls learned optimism. And he brought this work of positive psychology into the military. He eventually became the president of the APA. And what I started to do was incorporate these resilience-focused strategies into my work. And this began to dramatically change how I felt at the end of the day. We then really need to know how to take care of ourselves all along the way. And I'm going to give you those tools.